Okay, welcome everybody to our special planning committee meeting. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 9:35. I'm going to verbally confirm that all our members are present, with the exception of Councillor Hayes and Councillor Nishikawa. They both send their regrets. We have the CAO, the clerk, the Director of Development Services and Environmental Sustainability, and other staff members, and a complete IT support staff right in here this morning. So any communication came to planning at muskokalakes.ca has been distributed. Today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka Lakes website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. There was no supplementary agenda. Any disclosure, members of the committee, of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none. Just a few opening comments before we get going. We are doing this live, as in people are coming into the chamber, and we also are doing this remotely. This is the first time we've attempted this. It is being done without the ability of having all of our new equipment that has now been ordered to set the chambers up, so we can do this on an ongoing basis. So I'm going to ask for your indulgence. We may have a few blips along the way here in terms of the IT and feedback, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll get it right, but it may take us a few tries on a few things. So that's that part of it. The other part that I do want to address is I had an email come in last night that was full of a lot of emotion, et cetera, et cetera. I know this is an emotional topic for a lot of people. So I just want to set the parameters for this morning. And that would be that we're here to talk about the official plan review. We are talking about what's in the official plan review, and that is where we are going to focus. Please, there are no personal comments. There are no comments about other groups or people. We are going to stay strictly on topic. And if it starts to wander for anybody, we will be muting and then starting over again, because I do understand it is emotional, but that's the structure. It's going to be strictly about this document and what we like, I don't like, and suggestions for it. So I think that's it. Anything else, Mr. Pink, I needed to say? You don't think so? Okay. So welcome. We have it. Sorry. Oh, the 5-minute limit. It is a 5-minute limit for everybody speaking. And I really ask, because we have registered 18 live and 52 people via Zoom. So I'm going to ask that if your points have been made, if you could just very briefly describe that and carry on, so that perhaps we don't need the 5 minutes for everybody. And I think that's it from my end. And Mr. Pink, would you like to, or Mr. and I'm welcoming Mr. McDonald and Mr. Dyment, our consultants, are here with us actually in the chamber today. It's the first time that we've really had a chance to do that too. So welcome, Mr. McDonald, and welcome, Mr. Dyment. And I don't know if Mr. Pink, you need to introduce this. You would like to. All right. So Mr. Pink, please take it away.
Good morning, members of committee, members of the community, as well as staff. I wanted to begin by thanking everyone for attending today's Township Muskoka Lakes public meeting on our draft official plan, for taking interest in this important project and sharing your thoughts on the document. We look forward to hearing your comments. Notice of the public meeting was circulated 44 days prior to this public meeting to all required agencies, as well as all those who requested notification of the project, all those that subscribed to the dedicated project webpage, as well as known associations, stakeholder groups, and also published in the July 7th edition of the Gravenhurst Banner, Bracebridge Examiner, and Huntsville Forester. Statutory open house was held on August 3rd, 2022. As well, the township has received a number of written submissions to date, and I do wish the community to know that we are accepting written submissions on the draft official plan until August 29th. 2022. Please also note that Planning Committee has already passed a resolution at their special Planning Committee meeting of June 24th, 2022, that all of the input received on the third draft of the official plan be reviewed and summarized in a further staff report to Planning Committee, together with recommendations surrounding potential revisions to the further draft of the official plan. So we are here today to listen to your comments. Rest assured, we will further review those and consider those at a future special Planning Committee meeting. With that, thank you again for attending. I look forward to hearing your input, and I believe Mr. McDonald does have a presentation to introduce the official plan. Thank you.
Yes,
thank
you very, that's okay.
Excuse me, I forgot to mention that we are here to listen, just to Mr. Pink's point. Councillors are here to listen, and we will ask questions of clarification, but basically this is a listening on our end. So I think the format will be, after Mr. McDonald finishes, that a presentation will be made or comments. I will ask if there are any questions, and then we'll move on. I'm sorry, I just wanted to set that up. Mr. McDonald, please.
Great. Thank you very much, Chair Bridgman and Mr. Pink. My name is Nick McDonald. I'm the president of Meridian Planning Consultants, and I'm joined here today by Mr. Jim Dyment from Municipal Planning Consultants, and both of us have been retained by the Township to prepare an updated official plan. Next slide, please. So we did have an open house last week and a public meeting this week. Essentially, the presentation I'm giving today is exactly the same as the one that was given last week. The purpose of the open house, which was a bit more informal, was to provide an overview of the proposed official plan, answer questions and receive feedback, and to discuss next steps. This public meeting today is a more formal public meeting under the Act. And again, it is to provide an opportunity for individuals and groups to make formal delegations to Council. And I understand there will be a number of those today. Also to provide an overview of the proposed official plan, to answer questions, and of course receive feedback, and then to discuss next steps. Next slide. So an official plan is a land use guide that sets out broad land use policies that apply across a municipality. The official plan is intended to assist the township in preparing zoning bylaws, in assessing and making decisions about development applications, undertaking public works, and lastly, in the undertaking of community improvements. Official plans, as you'll hear, are also required to be consistent with the provincial policy statement and conform to the district official plan. Next slide. So the township currently has an official plan. It has evolved over time through a series of amendments. It is a relatively complex official plan, but it has served the township very well. And it was decided in early 2019 that a comprehensive review of the official plan was required. And of course, the purpose of the review is to ensure that the official plan conforms, as mentioned, to provincial and district policy, and perhaps more importantly, to ensure that it reflects the current vision of the community as expressed by Council. Next slide. A 5-stage work plan was developed at the outset of the process. Stage 1 involved the holding of a community visioning session and an online survey in the summer of 2019. Stage 2 involved the preparation of a discussion paper, and that occurred in the winter of 2019-2020. Stage 3 involved the preparation of policy directions, which you'll hear in a few moments, provided a significant basis for the preparation of policy. We held a number of virtual workshops at the time and an online survey, and that happened in the fall of 2020. Stage 4 involved the preparation of the official plan itself, the holding of open houses, and another online survey, and that happened in the fall of 2021. Stage 5, which is where we're at now, involved the preparation of another draft, the holding of open houses, and this public meeting, and then the preparation of a final official plan. So that's expected to occur in the summer of 2022. Next slide. There has been lots of consultation through this process, as evidenced by the level of interest expressed by many members of the community. We've had 5 public workshops and open houses, including the open house held last week. We had 3 online surveys in 2019, 2020, and 2021, with about 1,700 participants. We had 25 meetings with Planning Committee, or the working group. I did actually count it up. It's about 100 hours of meeting time in these meetings. We did did do 3 drafts of the policy directions document itself that led to the development of the official plan. And then we prepared 4 drafts of the official plan itself. We received over 100 written emails and letters throughout the process. And of course, we had a dedicated webpage and a social media presence as well. Next slide. So as mentioned, a series of policy directions set the stage for the preparation of the draft official plan. These policy directions dealt with a range of issues such as lake system health, recreational carrying capacity, lot creation, lot sizes, and so on. And these were approved by Council in October of 2020. These policy directions provided the basis for many of the updates to the policies that are now in the proposed official plan. However, in some cases, I should note, the direction changed as a result of further consideration afterwards. Next slide. So in terms of what an official plan contains, and this one's no different than many others in the province, Part A establishes where the official plan applies, what the purpose of the official plan is, and how it's organized. Part B sets out the vision and objectives. Part C identifies what the growth management includes growth management policies and establishes projections for housing and population growth to 2046. Part D includes policies on natural heritage and water resources, a very important section here in Muskoka Lakes. Part E deals with the waterfront area land use designation, which applies to all of the lands around the water bodies in the township. Part F deals with tourist accommodation and sets out rules for new resorts and the downzoning of existing resorts. Part G is not populated at the present time, but it will be. The Minette Resort Village was the subject of a separate planning exercise that was recently approved by the District of Muskoka, and once finally approved, it will be included within the official plan. Part H includes policies on the rural land use designations in the township. Part I contains policies on the urban center land use designations. Part J is the community area land use designations. Part K deals with mineral aggregate resource areas and sets out the criteria to be considered if an application to develop a new pit or quarry is received. Part L contains general development policies. Part M contains special site policies, and these are policies that apply to specific properties that have received permissions historically for certain types of development. Part N, lastly, deals with implementation and administration. Next slide. There are a number of schedules associated with the plan as well. Schedule A sets out the land use designations outside of the urban centers and community areas. Schedule B sets out the land use designations in Port Carling, and Schedule B does the same in Bala. And then Schedule C1 to C5 establish the land use designations in the 5 community areas in the township. Next slide. Number of appendices are attached to the official plan as well. Appendix A identifies where the major watersheds in Muskoka Lakes are. Appendix B1 and B2 set out the service area boundaries in Port Carling and Bala. Appendix C identifies where the natural heritage and features and areas are. Where known. Appendix D identifies water resources in the township. Appendix E identifies other resource areas and other constraints. Appendix F identifies where flooding hazards are located in certain parts of the township. Appendix G identifies the transportation routes and how they're classified and where the scenic corridors are in the township. And then lastly, Appendix H identifies areas of archaeological potential in the township as well. Next slide. So many of the permissions and policies in the current official plan have been carried forward and strengthened. However, there are a number of policy changes proposed, and the more significant ones are listed on the next few slides. I should note that there are many other changes not identified specifically in this slide deck, and we acknowledge that. But what we wanted to do is identify what we thought were the more significant ones. So firstly, a new general objective has been added to the official plan that requires that a precautionary approach to the protection of natural heritage features and areas and lake system health be a key element of any Planning Act decision. We heard loud and clear from many folks in the township that the environment is a number-1 concern, as is lake system health. So a precautionary approach makes a lot of sense. Recognition of the impacts of a changing climate have been factored into the development of multiple policies, and Many of these changes come directly from the province and are required to be implemented in official plans throughout the province. We've included growth forecasts for population and housing development to 2046, and they've been included in the official plan as well. They're not the same forecasts as are currently included in the district's plan. After the district's plan was completed, an updated series of forecasts was completed, and we are incorporating those within the township's official plan. Next slide. Updated policies on natural heritage and water resources from the district official plan have been implemented in the township official plan. However, the township's official plan goes further and requires that a natural heritage system be developed by the township through a future planning process. We've included updated policies on environmental impact studies, watershed planning, and stormwater management in the official plan. Enhanced lake system health policies based on the policies of the district official plan have also been included in the township official plan as well and enhanced wherever possible. The district plan requires causation studies for 9 lakes and 2 bays on Lake Muskoka. The proposed official plan will restrict new lot creation on these lakes until causation studies are completed for those lakes. So that goes beyond the minimum standard established by the district official plan. Minimum required lot frontages and areas for new lots has been increased on all lakes except Lake Joseph. They've been increased on narrow water bodies where steep slopes are present, and if a new water access only lot is proposed. Next slide. Site plan agreements are proposed to now be required for most new development in the waterfront area. At the present time, site plan agreements are required in certain zones and in certain circumstances. We're proposing to expand where site plan agreements are now needed, and they will be needed for new dwellings and new boathouses in the waterfront area, additions to dwellings and boathouses that are greater than 50 square meters or about 500 square feet, new sleeping cabins and new accessory buildings greater than 50 square meters, again, would also require site plan agreements. Through this enhanced process, the OP would require, of course, that site alteration be minimized. Requiring site plan approval allows for a case-by-case conversation with landowners to ensure that the best outcome in terms of how development occurs on a property is achieved. While there has been much discussion on the need for deeded access for new waterfront access only lots and some back and forth in terms of the direction. In the end, deeded access has not been made a requirement when applications for new lots are submitted. However, the requirements that need to be fulfilled have been enhanced. After much discussion as well on this topic, lot creation is not permitted on lakes where the recreational carrying capacity has been exceeded, and this applies to about 51 water bodies in the township. We've also introduced a new policy that would permit limited recreational floor area in the ground floor of boathouses. However, that will not be implemented until the township's zoning bylaw is updated, and there will be more specific rules on how much of that bottom floor or ground floor can be used for that purpose when that happens. Next slide. Policies that implement relevant portions of lake plans for 3 Mile Lake, Skeleton Lake, Little Long Lake, Leonard Lake, and Brandy Lake have been included in the official plan as well. We've made significant changes to the resort policy framework to ensure that new resorts meet certain commerciality tests and occupancy tests for resorts that no longer can operate. We've included new policies that establish a down zoning path, which can be considered on a case-by-case basis. The lot creation policies in the rural area have also been standardized, so they apply township-wide, and we've also included or identified a new local agricultural area designation, which would apply to areas which exhibit agricultural uses at the present time. References to new floodplain mapping completed by the district have been incorporated within the official plan. However, the full implementation of this mapping will occur through the zoning bylaw process that will occur once the official plan has been approved. Next slide. A new local community areas designation has been created for those areas that are not considered to be settlement areas by the District of Muskoka, and they include Bent River, Allswater, Ufford, 3 Mile Lake Corners, D-Bank, Walker's Point, Balacan, and Raymond. A more robust urban design policy framework has been included in this section dealing with the 2 urban centers. The 5 community areas have been divided into land use designations that currently doesn't occur in the existing official plan. It's just identified as a community area. So some time and effort was spent to divide these community areas into different land use designations to ensure that certain land uses can only occur in the more appropriate locations, and land use conflicts are minimized. And these policies apply to Foots Bay, Glen Orchard, Milford Bay, Torrance, and Windermere. And then lastly, we've included updated policies on cultural heritage resources, servicing, attainable housing, sustainable development, and communication towers as well. Next slide. So in terms of next steps, as indicated by Mr. Pink at the outset, written comments on the draft official plan will be received until August 29th, 2022. Following the receipt of those comments and our consideration of them, we will have a meeting with the Planning Advisory Committee, or more than one meeting as needed, to review comments and provide direction. And then a final official plan will then be prepared, and this final version will be presented to Planning Advisory Committee, and direction will be sought on the changes made. Following the decision by the township to adopt the official plan is then sent to the District of Muskoka, who will be the approval authority for it. That is it for this presentation, Madam Chairman, and I hand it back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. McDonald. All right, we are now going to start our comments from our in-person public, and I believe, Mr. Pierce, it looks like you or Ms. Brown are up first.
I didn't want to go first. I specifically said that's told.
Well, I don't think we can do that because not everybody showed up to begin with. So, okay, Ms. Brown. Okay, please.
Different computer than I'm used to. Is that it? Okay. Good morning, planning committee members and everyone in attendance here today. Allie Brown from Port Carolina, Ontario. I'm here today to speak on behalf of myself and as a representative for our Muskoka Stakeholders Association. What a long haul to have us at the draft we are here today discussing. I was not a part of the official plan review process initially, but after attending meetings last summer, fall, it has been interesting following a long process that was intended to obtain extensive public input. We've now come to a place where council must decide on the draft official plan or not. Today, we are here to share our thoughts and opinions on the latest June 28th, 2022 draft. You should have all received our Muskoka stakeholders submission alongside the letter from Planscape and the detailed policy review comments ahead of the meeting. As we cannot get into every detail of our submission today, I wanted to emphasize we see great value in receiving broad public input. However, this topic has been so complicated, lengthy, and drawn out that many people that were initially engaged have grown tired, lost interest, and are no longer participating in the review. Listening and participating through countless hours and possibly days of planning committee meetings, there is no doubt about the love and respect we all have for Muskoka. We're all passionate about the reasons why we are here and a part of this process. Our common love of Muskoka unites us. Strength comes in numbers, and we are stronger when we work together in a community. The township should be guided and encouraged to engage with local planners and builders who use the official plan and bylaws every day through their daily work in the township. Staff and consultants should be encouraged to support and engage local businesses and companies that would be affected by the changes. We have concerns that local businesses, employees, and residents have no idea of the proposed changes and the significant potential impacts. Just over the last couple of days' meetings, I heard about faults with the firework bylaws and issues with paving. For fireworks, you had two locals coming to ask permission after they learned about the new provisions and they were denied permission. For paving, two locations where it should not have taken place the way it did. Council discussed giving a fine to the paving company that completed the work. However, has the township made any effort to educate the companies or landowners about the rules and guidelines behind certain bylaws? What I do see is you have opened the door for frustration from your constituents as they're trying to learn and follow the rules. I bring up these points to highlight that people really do not understand the bylaws, and such strict enforcement should really only take place if a person, company knowingly violated against the rules. The same applies with the draft official plan. If owners, contractors don't understand what the new rules really mean, they won't be following them properly. Most people simply do not understand what an official plan is let alone how it can impact their business or the use and enjoyment of their property. This is very problematic. We believe Township and Muskoka Lakes residents and builders do a good job of protecting the environment. Our Muskoka believes that protection of the environment is not a matter of more controls, it is a matter of having the right controls, sufficient public education, and adequate enforcement. The controls currently in place generally are working very well, as evidenced by water quality testing and the appearance of natural vegetated shorelines. We should celebrate this achievement and ensure we continue to improve, instead of continuing the practice of implementing increasingly complex policies and regulations that drive up costs, delay projects, increase staff workload, restrict creativity, impact property owners' enjoyment of the township, and divide the community. Let's find a different way. We are concerned with the number and impact of the changes to the official plan and the lack of justification and analysis taken to support the changes. We question the cost implications of the proposed plan and the impact to the township's spending and budget. We also question how an already overloaded planning process can cope with greater workload and complexity. The draft official plan is far too difficult to understand, consists of layers of complications between different policies, provides very little guidance on how certain policies will operate, includes policy wording that is unclear and vague, is significantly more restrictive than the current official plan, and lacks sufficient justification to support many of the proposed changes. Our Muskoka believes the official plan should be straightforward, fair, and enforceable, does not impede creativity or result in increasingly uniform development, and respects the environment and the qualities that make the township so beautiful. We urge you to consider making the official plan clear and understandable. Leave all the detailed numbers to be worked out within the bylaws. Going through this process has opened my eyes to the reality that a lot of people do not know what they are allowed to do or not. I want to reiterate that education is so important. However, the proposed official plan is so detailed and complex that it took multiple meetings and conversations with our planner to understand. If people can't understand it, finish that? Okay. They are not going to know what policies mean or how they function. My last point is that I really want to make sure I fully grasp what can and cannot be done on Township and Muskoka Lakes properties as my kids grow up, because this place I call home is somewhere where I hope creativity and advancements in building and development is accepted so that my children can happily grow and be a part of the community like my 7th generation husband. Thank you for considering our submission. Thanks.
Okay, so Ms. Brown,
Okay.
can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Everybody? Okay. Ms. Brown is also going to speak on behalf of Mr. Clark, who was unable to be here today. Ms. Brown, go ahead.
On behalf of Bob Clark, and this is his words, so. I have been involved in the official planning process since close to the inception as a participant of a planning group. I was asked to be a part of the committee based on my background and experience in both the real estate and building industries. It's been a long, interesting, and frustrating haul, to be honest. Several hundred hours of meetings, input, review, and consultations. And frankly, I only put in a portion of the hours compared to what our counselors and staff have put in. Regrettably, the first official plan draft came out and was for the most part a canned document that incorporated little of the compromise that has been achieved by the group that was formed. Many on the committee actually asked what happened to our input and comments, and then the exact same thing happened on the second draft. By the second draft, council decided that they indeed needed to be involved in the meetings, and shortly thereafter, our committee was disbanded. We have so much definition in the OP, we don't need bylaws. Our OP is mostly a bylaw document. We can see the amount of effort to get a bylaw passed. Site alteration is taking months to get right. It's important to get it right. After going through this process, I have essentially done everything I can do to my own property to optimize the current OP and bylaws before these proposed changes take effect. Many of you in the public will wish you had paid attention when you go to do anything to your property. So why do we all have these things, but you will not be allowed to? What will the implementation of these policies cost us as taxpayers? One more planner? Are we really saving the environment with these several restrictions? How long will a permit take by the time we do all the studies and requirements needed to submit? At what cost? If we can even apply, as small lakes are essentially frozen for lot creation. There are other ways to ensure responsible development on our lake systems other than simply imposing more restrictions and costs to the property owner. The reality is, after 3 years of being involved in this, I'm not sure how these policies will be enforced or, more importantly, interpreted. Do you have a lower boathouse lounge? Do you have a 100-foot or less lot or current coverage issue? Are you looking to alter your site in the slightest way or take down a tree? Does your property have any grandfathered attributes, docks or cottage? Do you have or want accessory buildings with a bathroom or plumbing? Are you on a small lake and want to sever your land to a family member? Do you need a permit for anything? Probably everything. What are the new costs and timeframes? Are the proposed numbers restrictions supposed to be in a policy or a bylaw? If any of these apply to you, I can assure you that the majority of property owners have no idea how these changes will impact their properties, but almost every property will be impacted in one way or another. There is still a lot of work to be done. Thank you, Bob Clark.
Okay, so before you depart, Ms. Brown, does anybody on the committee have any questions? Mr. Kelly, Council.
Barb, we can't hear Councillor Kelly.
Can you hear me now? Perfect, thank you. All right, good morning, Ms. Brown. For the record, Allie and her family are next door neighbors of ours in the winter, so I'm uncomfortable calling her Ms. Brown. I know her as Allie. I have a quick question. We received this email last night. We didn't, but some of us did last night. I think it was at 8:20, roughly. It was forwarded to us actually, it was at 6:22 last night. It was forwarded to some of us. 8:20 this morning, the rest of us got it. Haven't had time to do much more than take a quick look at it. I'm a little confused about whether it is a submission by Mr. Clark in his own right or by Mr. Clark as a representative of your stakeholders association, our Muskoka. And because of the handoffs and the clumsiness with me and the technology, I'll just ask the questions and then I'll sit back. So that's my first question. The second question, there is quite a bit of material that was in the original submission that didn't quite make it into your presentation. I assume that was for time, edited for time, which leads me to ask the chair the question whether the original document itself will be part of the public record. Will it be circulated? Has it been circulated? And will everyone have the benefit of the rest of Mr. Clark's comments?
I think I am unmuting. I am going to look to our clerk, who I believe is. So can you, Mr. Pink? Okay, Mr. Pink, because I'm not sure of the legal part of that. Mr. Pink?
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I believe if the question was the submission made last night is a submission and part of the public record for this project, I believe it is. It will become part of the package. And again, staff has been directed to report back with a summary of that heard. But again, all the submissions will also be forwarded to council in their entirety as their previous request. I think I would look to Ms. Brown to answer your first question. Thank you.
We didn't hear that interchange or exchange of.
Okay. So just to answer Councillor Kelly's question, Bob's email to everyone that was distributed was on behalf of himself, and my submission was on behalf of our Muskoka Stakeholders Association. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's it from committee. Nobody else has any questions. Then we will move on. Thank you, Ms. Brown. And we will move on to Mr. Pierce. Welcome, Mr. Pierce.
Yeah, there you go.
I think Ms. Brown was a little shorter than I was. Thank you very much, Chair Bridgen. Ken Pierce, 2232 Muskoka Road 169. I'm a director and officer of the MLA and the Friends of Muskoka. I will be speaking on behalf of both organizations. We have a couple of other people that will be speaking. We're a little bit out of order, but that's okay. I'd like to have 3 comments on the draft OP. Maximum owner occupancy for a resort condominium unit, what happens when a resort ceases to carry on business, and number of mainland parking spots and boat slips required for new water access lots. Regarding maximum owner occupancy, with a unit being required to be in rental pool at least 26 weeks per year, arguably it is not commercial or residential. It's sort of a 50-50. The predominant use is neither one or the other. However, at some point you reach a tipping point. We would argue that 26 weeks is the tipping point. Our survey showed that 70% of respondents believe that owner usage at resorts should be limited to 26 weeks per year or less, with 4 weeks during the summer. This is clearly what the community prefers. However, a provision's been added to permit an owner to use the unit when it is not rented. And since this could lead to up to 100% usage, we're pleased that the township's consultant, Meridian, is proposing a maximum of 39 weeks or 75% of the year, effectively splitting the baby between 50% and 100%. However, we suggest that is still too much. It's only 3 weeks shy of the 42 weeks that our community found very objectionable, with only 10 weeks in a rental pool. That we saw with Villas and Touchstone and then at Legacy. It's a long way from 50-50. Councillor Jaglowitz did suggest, previously recommended 31 weeks, which means 60% of the year. We agree with that. Anything over 26, as I said, is starting to trend towards residential. That said, we are appreciative that the township's consultant, again, Meridian, did provide that it would in no way affect the maximum owner usage during July and August, which is 4 weeks. So the units can't be used as residential summer cottages. The second point is what happens when a resort ceases to carry on business. There was some language in the original current in place official plan, and Meridian suggested that owners should not be precluded from using their units when the resort ceased to carry on business. And we agree. We believe that that would be overly harsh and in fact may be unenforceable. However, rather than saying owners may operate the resort themselves, but cannot convert them to residential use, we also suggest that owners should continue to use the units as part of a tourist commercial resort. The may use it as a resort is in our view problematic. We think it should be shall, at a minimum, using a centralized rental pool. While we recognize that unit owners may not be able to operate a restaurant or even a pool, nor would we probably want them to, at a minimum, they can operate as a commercial condo by operating a rental program. We believe that that would not be difficult or onerous. In many cases, the owner developer is no longer in the picture and it's just a condo corporation. It must be a commercial condo corporation, not a residential condo. And that's, as they say, what the current OP provides. Regarding parking and docking for new water access lots, we would be supportive of just one parking space and one boat slip. Currently, I think it refers to 2 of each. And we think that that's probably, it would be nice, but I don't think it would be something that we would suggest needs to be an absolute requirement. Finally, We saw some commentary that many of the existing policies were simply being carried forward without any without any review or analysis, and new policies become proposed policy. I'm sorry, but objecting to existing policies and new policies doesn't leave much left. We hope that everybody and we encourage constructive comments. And there's also been some discussion and objections to an environment first policy framework. This has been a long-standing policy of the Township of Seguin, and in our view, is wholly appropriate for the Township of Muskoka Lakes. That's what it says now, and we encourage that. It's a policy direction that came across loudly and clearly during the entire public process over the last 3 years. And I'm just about finished. Lastly, at this stage, we don't see any need to privately meet with staff and planning consultants to discuss through our questions and concerns. We and others have done it through what is acknowledged by all to have been an exhaustive and extensive public consultation process. We are pleased with the direction of the current OP and the environment first emphasis. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you. Yes, committee, and I saw our consultants taking notes on all of your questions. Committee, any questions, comments? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Pierce. And Mr. Furness, please, welcome.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name's Don Furness, 1208 Morris Road, P1L0M8. And this morning I'm speaking on behalf of the Muskoka Ratepayers Association. The MRA fully supports all OP initiatives and policies to enhance the environment, economy, and societal well-being of our people, consistent with need and affordability. The MRA would like to make some general observations and a few specific comments in the very limited time allotted to provide input on a 250-page document. This OP fails to examine and evaluate both successful and failed objectives in the current 2008 to 2022 OP. The MRA's concern is that in 2046, the township will have no data, no baselines, and no concrete results to judge successes or failures of objectives and goals in any OP. However, there will be a series of added costs for site plans, enviro and causation studies, plus inspections with no quantifiable benefits. While no one can argue against the motherhood and apple pie general objectives in B2, there must be specific goals to quantify and judge successes and failures. Staff has advised the MRA that they do not know the number of properties in the township in 2008, let alone the numbers or growth rates for waterfront, urban, rural, and commercial properties over the past 14 years. All we do know is that in 2021, there were 14,992 properties in Muskoka Lakes, and it would seem logical to the MRA to evaluate past growth along with the slight increases forecast up to 2046. This type of analysis is just good planning before they implement the restrictive changes that are contemplated. Protection and enhancement of the environment, especially the water, is the utmost importance to the MRA members. District of Muskoka Watershed Council indicates improving water quality in successive report cards, and it is stated to be very good to excellent. Muskoka Lakes Association has reduced testing and concentrated on areas that feed major lakes because consistently testing non-problem areas is a waste of money. All this indicates to the MRA is that watershed activities and development are not having the deleterious impact over the longer term. The MRA believes baseline and change data for such parameters as phosphorus, E. coli, biological oxygen demand, algae blooms, and invasive species. Whatever happened to the horrors of blue strife, destroying our wetlands 30 years ago? It seems to have disappeared. This is absolutely essential information, and based on the data we see, Ratcheting up restrictions on property owners is currently unwarranted. Waterfront vegetation seems to be a major concern, as the growth and depletion of vegetative mass, the trees and plants on the waterfront forests, been quantitatively evaluated over successive official plans. The MRA suspects that no concrete data to even contemplate a correlation between lot size, setbacks, and water quality. They are perceptions at best. In 2006, waterfront lots of 100 straight line feet were permitted. In 2008, it was increased to 200. Can the township quantify the improvements that resulted from this change? Today, the OP minimum proposed is 300 feet and more on some lakes. Can the township quantify the shortcomings of 200 feet and the expected benefits of 300 feet? The MRA finds it paradoxical that Lake Joseph, with its slow water turnover, phosphorus sensitivity, steep walking shoreline, small watershed, lake trout, and a significant development during the current OP, remains at 300 feet. Is there a logical explanation with concrete data to explain this? The MRA approves of the reduction in dwelling sizes on smaller lakes. However, on the larger lakes, the OP still permits 7,500 square foot dwelling, a 3-slip, 2-story boathouse with almost 5,000 feet of water decking. This seems contrary to the waterfront slant of this whole OP. The MRA would like to comment on the implementation of recreational carrying capacity in this proposed OP. An informal study of 9 people who were asked their understanding of the term recreational carrying capacity regarding lakes. Almost everybody responded it had to do with controlling the type and number of boats on a lake. Like the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea, which certainly isn't democratic or republic, RCC has nothing to do with recreation or carrying capacity. It gaslights the public. I could wrap it up in 1 minute. Is that okay? Okay. You don't make any allowance for 100 feet of frontage or 1,000 feet in RCC. And we have 51 lakes that are in channels and bays that are included, but the district only has 4 lakes that are restricted on lot creation. This seems rather excessive. Thank you for letting me run over, and thank you for the opportunity to present.
Council, or committee, any questions? Councillor Jaglowitz.
Yes, Chair. Thank you. Through you to the delegate. Don, I don't recall receiving a copy of your presentation. Will you be making it available?
Okay, it will be sent. Thank you. It will be sent electronically to the clerk.
Thank you.
Did you hear me, Councillor Jaglowitz? Okay. I'm still a little unclear on how all this is working. So, okay, thank you very much, Mr. Furness. Thank you. Okay.
Anyone else who's let's Kaylee know.
All right, so I gather that we do have some people in the community center. That's where we're bringing them over from. No one else at this point in time wishes to speak from the community center. So please, Kayleen, who is over there, and please let her know if you want to be brought over. So with that, I think we'll move on then to our virtual, which at this point is 52. And I believe I have first on my list. Do we want to go through it this way, Lauren, then? Okay.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you. So I believe we're going to bring in Lisa Grogan Green.
Not seeing
Okay, Mr. Roberts.
Yes, he's there.
So perhaps we could bring in 3 at a time just to keep it moving.
Yeah.
So if Ms. Seagram and Ms. Denier could come in, and then we'll just ask them to keep their cameras off and mute themselves. Mr. Roberts, can you hear me? Mr. Roberts?
Hold on. Can you hear me now?
Welcome, Mr. Roberts.
Welcome. My name is John Roberts, 31-1158 Shea Road in Utterson. Currently, I'm the president of the 3 Mile Lake Association, and my comments reflect the views of our association. I would like to compliment the Township's Planning Committee, David Pink and his staff, and the consultants for all their efforts in putting together this official plan. I would like to make brief comments on 4 items on the plan. Number 1, causation studies, which is section E4.2.3 on pages 61 to 64. 3 Mile Lake is considered an endangered Category 2 lake, and we are pleased that no new lot creation is currently allowed on our lake until the results of the causation study are finalized. Number 2, recreational carrying capacity, which is section E9 on page 86 of the official plan. Under the existing recreational carrying capacity calculations, the maximum number of waterfront lots on 3 Mile Lake should be 550. Currently, we have over 600 waterfront lots. We agree that recreational carrying capacity should be included as a hard cap in the new official plan. Number 3, lake plans, which is section 10.3.1 on pages 88 and 89. We are very pleased that once the result of the causation studies are released, likely later this year, a remedial action plan should be developed. However, we are suggesting a changing to the wording on that section. And our suggestion is the Township and District of Muskoka, in consultation with the 3 Mile Lake Association, will use the results of the causation study to develop a remedial action plan. Right now, the way it's worded, it looks like the onus is upon the lake associations. We don't have the data. We don't have funds for consultants, whereas the district and the township do. Number 4, short-term rentals, which is section F4B on page 111. We strongly recommend that the wording in section B be changed so that the regulations on short-term rentals should apply not just to rentals for commercial purposes, but also to occasional rentals as it pertains to the effects on septic systems. That's our biggest concern, is with short-term rentals. Yes, there are problems with noise and dark skies and those parking, but our biggest concern is what happens when you get a short-term rental that has a septic system that is set up for 2 bedrooms, and all of a sudden you have 7 cars show up with 14 people there. What is the effect on that septic plan? Once the township begins their mandatory inspections of septic systems every 5 years on 3 Mile Lake, data should be available as to the maximum number of guests that the septic system will support. We also suggest that if a septic system is found to be dysfunctional, that no short-term rentals be allowed on that property until the problems have been rectified, whether it be a commercial property or a private property. If there's a problem with the septic system, you know there's a problem, no short-term rentals until it's fixed. One of our members, Mimi McDermott, has already made a presentation of the planning committee listing other concerns about short-term rentals on 3 Mile Lake, including noise, parking, the effects of dark skies, and the overloading of a recreational carrying capacity. Thanks for the opportunity to comment on the official plan.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Roberts. Any comments or questions, committee? I believe many of your comments will be really helpful when the new council gets to the short-term rental criteria, Mr. Roberts. So I encourage you, and I'm sure you will, to come back and delegate at that point.
We'll certainly, yeah, we certainly will do that. I just wanted to put the idea out there early.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Okay, is Ms. Seagram? Sure. Okay, so we have all the people who have come in virtually. We need you to raise your hand if you would like to speak, because we have to move you into our meeting and then we'll move you back to the waiting room. So if anybody who's in the waiting room on the Zoom call would like to speak, please raise your hand so we know that we can move you in. So Lauren, does that mean?
Yeah, that's helpful.
That's helpful. So, okay, so we don't have Ms. Seagram here. And what about Ms. Denier? Okay, and what about Ms. Van Exen? Okay. I'll tell you what, whoever's raising their hand, bring them in and we'll just do it that way. We're not going to try to do the list anymore. Sorry? Okay. I'm going to guess that that is Mr. Zurbach, but we'll see. Oh, it is. Welcome, Mr. Zurbach.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. Madam Chair, just as a matter of interest here, Planscape has been retained by 3 separate groups of individuals with 3 separate issues. So I know there's a lot of people waiting, and I appreciate, you know, time is everything for individuals, but I do have 3 separate presentations. I will not get them done, all 3 of them done in 5 minutes. I'm happy to take care of one right now and do another one later. Please, I'm at your discretion. It's important that we represent, you know, that we state comments on behalf of these 3 groups.
I can't do that, Mr. Zurbach. I can't give you more than 5 minutes. I'm going to suggest that you send those presentations to the committee then. And I guess you may have to pick one from what you're telling me.
Sure, that's fine. If perhaps staff can acknowledge our submission on behalf of the 6 individuals on Lake Joseph and acknowledge our submission on behalf of the resort owners. That was submitted to staff last night. I don't know if council or the staff or the consultants have received that. If that is the case, then I can proceed with just one individual here.
So one moment, because now I'm thinking that Ms. Brown was allowed to speak for 2 people. So Mr. Harding, that was your point, and I get there eventually.
Yep, you got it. Thank you. I think you
Okay.
should be allowed to represent different people.
Yeah. Okay. So my apologies, Mr. Zurbach. I just needed to get there. So all right. So have we got this teed up then? Okay. Terrific. So I believe it's going to come on screen very shortly, and please go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. So just briefly, again, with the submissions that we've provided, I'm not going to get into detail, but Planscape has been retained by 6 individuals of properties on Lake Joseph. We've provided several delegations on behalf of Castles LLP and Planscape. Our clients include Leonard Latchman, Daniel Davio, Graham Saunders, Oliver Bach, Adam Oshon, and Patrick DeVigi. We submitted again the letter yesterday. And again, without providing, getting into specific details, their concerns mainly relate to the use policies of boathouses and maintaining and clarifying their current development rights, basic land use permissions, and number and size of accessory structures on waterfront properties. Our clients are very pleased to see a positive step forward, including accessory recreational floor area within the first story of boathouses. However, this revision lacks the clarity and in their mind doesn't go far enough to recognize the important recreational space that has been involved in boathouses historically through these waterfront properties. The second concern relates to the new rigid regulatory and further restrictive policies for waterfront properties. This will clearly extend what currently is an extremely long planning and building process within your municipality. And again, official plans are intended to be a broad expression of goals, objectives, and provide policy direction for how to achieve them. This direction has clearly been overlooked and resulted in an overly complicated, prescriptive, and restrictive document with too much detail and too much regulation. I don't have to remind you that there are properties in Muskoka Lakes that are not similar, not cookie cutter. Every property is unique, and to have prescriptive official plan policies without proper tests to review planning applications is inappropriate and inaccurate to properly take a look at certain situations that may work. Specifically, policies that are as drafted will respond and will require many more official plan amendments, especially when you're including numbers within official plans. Sure, there are instances where numbers are appropriate, but clearly the additional set of numbers is inappropriate in this instance and better to be reviewed and better to be inserted into a zoning bylaw. The official plan as drafted is in fact turning into what is a zoning bylaw. The second point is when the planning policies are providing further restrictions to development rights, care must be given to the legal non-conforming and non-complying policies within the official plan. It appears that the changes to these policies, again, are going to further restrict existing non-complying situations. So you're going to create additional properties that are deemed to be non-conforming, non-complying. And again, their rights are also restricted in these instances. So just thoughts related to that. And finally, with respect to this group, there needs to be a proper planning assessment for new policy changes to long-standing policies, such as background papers that are defendable and not arbitrary. To simply increase lot frontages in area for new lot creation is wrong without proper analysis and proper justification. This clearly is going to impact landowners' development rights as well as their investments. Without these justifications and understanding of the implications and the background reports, our clients object specifically to this area. So in general, as the plan in its current form, this group of clients are objecting to a lot of the waterfront policies that are in play, and we're happy to work with the consultants and your staff to address these situations. This cannot be adopted in short order. This official plan is going to guide development for the next 20 plus years, and a significant time is required to ensure that the landowners fully understand what is intended in this official plan. Thank you.
Thank you. I actually thought you had a presentation you were going to tee up. That wasn't the case. Okay. No. Okay, thank you. All right. I see that Councillor Jaglowitz does have a question.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I do. It's for Mr. Sherbak. Thank you for your presentation. In your presentation, you indicated that the official plan has too many, should not be defining limits. It should be left to the zoning bylaw. I disagree with that, and I'd like to get your opinion how the problem I have with that. And if, for example, the OP sets no limit on something like, let's say, recreational forest space in a boathouse, and that limit is put in the zoning bylaw, then since there's no limit in the OP, then a ZBA can be applied for to exceed the zoning bylaw limit, and the OP doesn't provide any guidance as to how that can go. Let's say the zoning bylaw says 10%, and the OP is silent, then what's stopping a person asking for 100%? How would you square that if there's no definition in the OP? Thank you.
Mr. Sherbak.
Madam Chair, thank you. And Mr. Councillor Jaglowitz, that's a very good question. And the simple answer is the official plan as drafted doesn't include a number of policy tests to assess variations to these numbers. So clearly the official plan needs tests. I mean, there could be certain circumstances that where a large property with large frontage lot area, there's an existing boathouse that is in play that really is not going to matter for somebody boating by whether or not this recreational space is 100 square feet or 200 square feet. You won't know the difference. It's internal. So again, to provide rigid numbers in an OP in my opinion, is wrong. It needs to be in a zoning bylaw, and the official plan must have a number of tests to review against in certain unique situations.
Quick supplementary.
Please go ahead.
So to summarize what you said is you object to the hard number, but you're comfortable with tests that provide an overall limit. But
Madam Chair, that's absolutely correct. And I think a lot of my planning colleagues would agree with that approach.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, Councillor Jaglouis. Thank you, Mr. Zervac. All right, who do we have next?
Should I go on with the other ones or?
Okay, now I'm understanding what you said. Okay, yeah, please do.
Sorry about that. Yes, the other two are also brief. So Plantscape, we are retained by a number of the remaining resort owners within the township, including Touchstone, Villas of Muskoka, Legacy, which is the Rosso Group, JW Marriott, the Cedar Rail Resort, Windermere House, Clear Lake, and Ferndale. Clearly, Madam Chair and members of council, resorts are the major economic driver within the official plan and within the municipality. And the draft official plan, as written, has clearly shifted this direction completely. This document does not support the resort sector. As written, it will hasten and support their demise. The position taken in this plan regarding the resort sector is completely counter to the direction of the overarching policy documents, such as the provincial policy statement and the District of Muskoka official plan. The PPS supports economic well-being of municipalities, and the District of official plan clearly encourages, recognizes, and supports this important resort sector. In addition, your current official plan went so far as to designate resorts as employment areas. And it specifically states that a comprehensive review when any of these properties are to be removed from this designation is required. As this has changed, was this review completed? And if so, what were the results? I haven't seen one. This change in position by this council has been made with no effort to consult with the resort sector. It's made no effort to consult with the Chamber of Commerce and Explorers Edge, the RTO 12. All of these agencies consistently promote, assist, and contribute to the success of resorts in your municipality. In my mind, and in a planning perspective mind and our client's mind, the negative impact this plan will have on the resort sector is increased by numerous detailed, confusing, inappropriate, and often contradictory policies sprinkled throughout the entire draft plan, mainly in Part F of the plan. It's very prescriptive, again, from a policy perspective, and every resort in the municipality is different. What works for one person, perhaps taken from Minette and one landowner, may not work for the other resort owners throughout the municipality. Many of these policies address ownership. Ownership, as Mr. McDonald clearly stated at the beginning, this is a land use policy document. It cannot get into regulating ownership throughout the municipality. There are a number of policies that discuss ownership and actually suggest that certain planning applications, such as commercial condominium, is discouraged. Again, you're trying to force people in terms of what type of application can be submitted, although it's their right to submit whatever application they want under the Planning Act. So again, the official plan has gone too far in my mind. Other policies impose rigorous specific controls that are inappropriate, again, in an official plan. These controls are appropriately addressed through zoning, design guidelines, and in some instances through other tools such as site plan and development agreements, not in an official plan. We can confirm through our extensive ongoing experiences when working with resorts that every resort property is unique, as previously mentioned, and the uses and structures cannot be properly addressed through policies set out in the official plan, specifically Part F. Accordingly, our clients object to the draft official plan in its current form. They are opposed to the adoption of this plan before the municipal election. And resort owners deserve the time to discuss these policy changes to understand why the shift in the township's position has occurred and to confirm council's intent with this policy direction, and not during the summer months, which is their busiest months. If approved as drafted, this plan will confirm that the township no longer supports the resort sector and hasten its decline. Thank you.
Okay, any questions from committee on this? Mr. Zerback?
Thank you. I have one more brief presentation, and this is as a result of a separate set of individual clients. And we have been working with these clients to consider severances on their waterfront properties. Our list of current clients include the estate of Blackmore, and Madam Chair, I can happily provide these clients to your staff just so they don't have to scramble writing them down. It's the estate of Blackmore, Rob McConnell, Dan Rubinoff, Eva Dunford, Charles Bailey, Andrew Shiner, Mary Knowles, estate of Surdam and Drew Ross. Due to various issues, clearly from a timing perspective and personal issues, many of our clients have taken some time with their severance applications. Often they're requiring professional consultation reports, such as fisheries reports. And in addition, due to the lengthy planning program at the municipality, it's taken some time to get these applications in. In addition, due to the pandemic, clearly people's lives have changed and a lot of these processes have been put on hold. Consultants are taking a lot longer to get information to the municipality. And again, the increase in development has increased the planning program at your municipality. So really they have significant concerns with the arbitrary increases to minimum lot frontage and lot area requirements contained in the official plan. This is coupled with the various changes to development permissions and their rights and further restrictions that again may respond and react to a legal non-complying situation that will also be looked at when severances are considered for the retained parcels, retained developed parcels. From a planning perspective, a proper assessment must be completed for these new policy changes to these long-standing policies. They must include legitimate planning rationale, background papers, and an analysis to ensure these proposed new directions are defendable and not arbitrary. If you're moving from 200 feet to 300 feet, why not 250? Why not 225? Why not 325? I mean, again, a proper analysis in terms of the number of lots that could be impacted is necessary. These changes have a significant impact to the rights of these individuals and again their investment with the property. Justification is required and this has not been significantly examined and explained. Additional background views are required in this instance. There has to be a better way to advise the ratepayers of the township with these significant changes that will impact their rights and investments. Perhaps the township should require the lake associations and various landowner groups that you're removing and increasing these development rights, increasing these severance standards to ensure that they are aware that this is ongoing. I know that the Muskoka group has continued to advise their membership on these significant policies changes and have provided great summaries to the changes that matter most to their membership. Finally, it's very important for the township to consider the transitional provisions with these changes if adopted. There are likely many severance applications that are on the desks of the planning department that are moving forward with these current provisions of 200 feet and an acre. Since the township does not deem applications complete within 30 days of submission, which is a requirement under the Planning Act, what will happen to these applications that have been in process for many months? What will happen after the adoption of the official plan if these policies or changes? This question needs to be addressed. Again, considering many of these individuals have spent months, if not years, trying to get these applications in play. Accordingly, again, our clients object to the draft official plan in its current form, and we request a copy of the notice if and when this official plan has been adopted. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Zerback. I believe when an application comes in, whatever the date that the application comes in is what the official plan that's in place at that time is what is applied to your one question. So I was unclear you asking that. An application comes in, it's whatever's in effect on that day that it is the application is measured against.
Is that, can that be confirmed through staff? Because that would assist immensely if that was in case the fact legally.
Oh, Mr. Pink?
Thank you. Through you, the clergy principle, I believe, would indicate that the applications are reviewed against the policies in effect at the time they're submitted or when they're deemed complete. And I recognize the municipality currently does have a backlog of applications. We're striving to improve those timelines and meet those legislated timelines to deem applications complete. But we certainly take note of your comments for transitional policies, and we'll be reviewing and discussing those. So thank you.
Okay, Mr. Zerback, one more? Or not? Are you good?
Well, again, just to clarify, so it's not as what Mr. Pink stated. Often applications are not deemed complete for 3, maybe 4 months after they're submitted. So is it when it's submitted or is it when it's deemed complete? Because if they're sitting in the township office for 4 months and it's changed, then all of a sudden those applications are non-conforming. So again, I appreciate it. I think there needs to be some discussions on transition and those applications that are in play and in process. Thank you.
So that's noted in terms of the transitions. Okay, I think Councillor Roberts may have a question for you. You're on mute, Gord. You're on mute.
And all those good words gone. more towards staff. Mr. Zerback gave a great presentation on that. Are we going to get a copy of his presentation? Because it really helps when I see it in writing and then go through it.
Mr. Zerback, are you going to submit something?
Yes, Madam Chair, you've got 2 letters, one on behalf of the resort group and one on behalf of the Lake Joseph group. I will submit a brief letter summarizing our comments about the severance request. So I will absolutely do that. So you will have written comments. Thank you. Great question.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, Lauren, do we have anyone else?
I think Mark Sparrow.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we could bring one other person in, and then we'll take a break after these next 2. Mr. Scarrow, can you hear me? There you are. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Chair Bridgman and members of the committee. My name is Mark Scarrow, and I reside at 1250 Leonard Lake Road 2 in Milford Bay. This morning, I'm delegating for the Leonard Lake Stakeholders Association in relation to our lake plan. Both the district and the township encouraged our lake to renew our lake plan with a view to bringing forward specific policies that address the special needs of a smaller lake. We have a community responsibility for lake health, and we have responded over the past 3 years with an outreach to all community members on our lake, regardless of their membership or not in the LLSA. One key theme in all of this discussion for us is the stark difference between a lake like Leonard Lake and the Big 3. Every time I get out on the Big 3 to do a day of boating, which I did actually on Wednesday with my wife, I'm struck at how very different virtually everything is. Lake character is a critical input to land use planning, and this could not be more evident when you go from the Big 3 back to Leonard Lake. Our lake plan policies come primarily from 2 places. Firstly, respecting the existing character of Leonard Lake, and secondly, protection of lake health and water quality. We've been working closely with our stakeholders and with our 3 Ward B councillors and with Director Pink, and I would like to thank all parties for their interest, patience, and input. We have listened to landowners on the lake who are concerned by the lake plan policies dealing with redevelopment and how future plans to redevelop interplay with the existing grandfathering rules, for example. In response, we've modified the 30-meter setback policy language so that it would apply only to new dwellings on vacant lots. We wish to clarify that while the existing 8% lot coverage rule for our lake will be enshrined in the lake plan section of the OP, it will of course continue to be subject to the purview of the township's minor variance rules. the 3,500 square foot gross floor area policy for new buildings speaks to lake character. The no new lot creation policy speaks to lake health challenges. And finally, with respect to the lake plan policy regarding a prohibition on new boathouse construction, the language in the current draft of the OP is not language that we proposed, but rather was drafted by, I believe, Mr. McDonald's team. In our view, the language does not reflect lake resident opinion expressed in the results of the May 2022 survey that we were asked to conduct. I think at this point, we have to leave the resolution of this boathouse matter in the hands of you as our town council and planning committee. We will be submitting a written request with final language amendments to the Leonard Lake section of the draft OP prior to the August 29th deadline, and would ask for council's support on this final version of the policies for Leonard Lake. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Scarrow. Any comments or questions, committee? Okay, thank you. And we will move on then to Mr. Rosek. Welcome.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning to the committee. Steve Rohacek, 1138 Leonard Lake Road number 2. I'm delegating on behalf of the Muskoka Small Lakes Coalition, representing Camel Lake, Brandy Lake, Leonard Lake, Skeleton Lake, and 3 Mile Lake, and speaking to a recreational carrying capacity hard cap for smaller lakes. The coalition has previously presented RCC to the Planning Committee on June 20th, which demonstrated strong fact-based evidence on the significant physical differences, including shoreline to lake area ratios, configuration, and topography between the big 3 lakes and the other smaller lakes in the township, and the impacts on lake recreational usage. We have also shown how a frontage-only policy for lot creation is punitive to smaller lakes, nor would smaller lakes receive the same planning policy benefit as the 3 larger lakes. While there have been some comments that RCC is not science-based, it's not based upon science, the OMB in the 2016 Seguin Osler Lake decision disagrees and stated the following. The board finds that RCC figures are not arbitrary. They are based on the standard calculation that has been developed out of years of research and experimentation. More generally, the board finds that the Seguin Council's use of RCC to limit development that would exceed the recreational capacity of the lake represents good planning. To date, of the groups who opposed RCC, none have offered any alternative that adequately addresses the valid concerns raised by the coalition and smaller lakes. Simply saying that the RCC policy should be omitted is not a viable solution. RCC is a proven methodology that addresses many of the concerns and issues smaller lakes are facing, and has a broad community support, including the Muskoka Lakes Association and Friends of Muskoka. The Muskoka Small Lakes Coalition strongly supports the continued inclusion of an RCC hard cap for smaller lakes in the official plan, with a carve out or exclusion for smaller lakes that prohibit motorized boats. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions, committee? All right, so I see we have Mr. Sift in, so let's just bring him in and then we'll take our break before we bring anybody else in. Mr. Sift.
Hello.
Welcome.
I've got my camera turned off. I'm in a bad signal area right now, so I just want to limit the amount of data I'm using. Hello, everyone. Thank you for my time to speak here today. Jason Sift, 3687 Highway 118 West Port Carling. I'm going to keep my speaking brief today. First off, I want to go on the record as saying that I'm very much opposed to many sections in this official plan. This is detailed in our 28-page summary document that was recently submitted to the town. The details in this document were drafted by our professional planners. Our hope is that this helps both the public and councilors to better understand the details buried in this document with over 200 plus pages. We have asked on a number of occasions for a summary document to be made to help the public get more involved and understand how this OP will affect them, but this has never happened, so we set out to do it ourselves. This official plan is much too complicated and full of so many subjective details. I have brought a few of these up in the past and have been told that's how it was written in the old plan. Well, I thought that's why we were here, to update the old plan and modernize it. All we have done is add a lot more regulations and restrictions. I will quickly talk on one example that needs to be adjusted. The new official plan proposes to apply site plan control to all lands. The Planning Act did not intend to have site plan control applied to single residences except for exceptional circumstances. At a minimum, new boathouses and expansions should not require site plan approval. I know the current committee and council would like to get this approved before leaving office, but I want to remind you all that this document will govern how Muskoka is developed and how property owners use their property for the next 10 to 20 years. This is a very important document, and whatever time is needed to get it right needs to be spent on it. Please take the time to make sure it's right and that it works for all constituents. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sift. Any questions, committee? Comments? No? All right. Okay, then we're going to take a 10-minute break. So we're back at 10 past 11. We do have, I think, about 4 or 5 more speakers at this point. So we'll be back shortly. Okay, everybody, can we get to everybody, but all our counselors back so we have quorum? So. Thank you. 5, 6. Well, I think, Madam Clerk, we have quorum, right? We do. Okay. All right. So let's carry on now. I see Mr. Bolshevsky, and I apologize if I have not got your name correct.
That's
Maybe
quite
I'll
all right.
just try for Jeff.
So Bolachowski, and don't worry, nobody ever.
Welcome.
Nobody's ever gotten it right, so you're in good company.
Thank you.
So, members of council, chair, thank you for giving me time to speak today. I'll keep it brief since I know you've got a very long agenda today. I'm here representing the Masonry Works Council of Ontario. We're the professional association representing Ontario's brick, stone, and block sector. We're here because we've been working for several years on a campaign called Building Tomorrow's Heritage Neighborhoods Today, where we've been helping communities raise the bar on built form and urban design through official plan policies like this. So we wanted to congratulate you on making so much progress on the OP so far. But we think one thing that would help strengthen the OP would be to commit to a set of strong design policies in some of the central areas of the township. Now, the current draft of the OP does offer the power to develop sustainable design guidelines, and we strongly urge that the plan do so, especially covering Port Carling and Bala. And we think not doing so represents a missed opportunity to raise the bar on the built form and urban design in these areas. Now, we're recommending that any such guidelines would lay out some standards for appropriate building materials in these parts of town. The preference is obviously for natural and enduring materials that don't deteriorate quickly, but are also capable of withstanding extreme weather events and demonstrating a very long lifespan. Now, there's a few different approaches that communities take to these design guidelines. A lot of this direction can be placed straight into the official plan, or it can be put into a separate standalone design manual that can be referenced by the official plan with expectations of conformity in the areas that the document covers. We'd also encourage language in the official plan that would encourage design in the main township centers to emphasize adaptive reuse. The old adage is that the best structure is one that's already built, and as you grow, it's better to have structures with very long lifespans that can be reused later. That way you'll get more out of them. Ultimately, the developments this plan approves will have impacts long afterwards. The consideration should be how they'll affect the character of the community 25, 50, even 100 years from now. You really are building tomorrow's main streets today when you approve things. So the question becomes, what will they look like? With the strong policies that could be in place, these buildings can stand the test of time and develop into landmarks for the community. Those are my comments, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Could we just have your address for our records?
I actually do not live in the township of Muskoka Lakes. The company that I work for is 8991 St. Paul Street, St. Catharines, Ontario. But Masonry Works is based in Mississauga with agencies across the province.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We need, the official records, all of that stuff. So that's it. And I believe Councillor Roberts has a question for you. So Councillor Roberts?
Of course.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to the delegate. Very interesting. Have you provided documentation in any manner to the township, and maybe a summary of your presentation?
We can provide that for you. We can also provide some best practices that have been undertaken in other municipalities to help you along.
Would you please do that and send it to our clerk so she can share it with us? Thank you.
I'd be pleased to.
Okay, thank you very much. And I believe Ms. Epplett is up next. That's right. Okay. Welcome, Ms. Epplett.
Thank you very much. My name is Susan Epplett, 45A Walkers Road in Rosso, and I'm president of the Muskoka Lakes Association and a director of Friends of Muskoka. I'd like to comment on 3 policies in the draft OP: site plan agreements, attainable housing, and dark sky lighting. In terms of site plan agreements, Meridian Consultants has provided that site plan agreements will be required for more types of site alteration in the waterfront. This is policy N5A. We'd like to point out that both the District of Muskoka and the province have adopted requirements for enhanced site plan control, and we are satisfied that the site alteration approval sections in the current draft are sufficient to comply. In particular, the district's official plan now requires site plan control for substantial development within the entire waterfront area in order to ensure no negative impact on recreational water quality. Ontario has a site plan control guide for municipalities, and it explains that site plan control is a tool for municipalities to ensure that development is well designed, fits with surrounding uses, and minimizes any negative impacts. It states, quote, within a site plan control area, most development or redevelopment projects require site plan approval by the municipality. In response to a question at the August 3rd open house about the cost to taxpayers of additional staff to administer increased site plan approval, Director Pink explained that, quote, we are in a transitional period right now with fluctuations in the economy. He projected that the changes to the site plan policies will likely result in one additional staff member. We believe that one additional staff member is reasonable and warranted, given the tremendous value added by site plan approval. As Mr. McDonald explained, site plan control on properties basically allows the township and the landowner to have a discussion about how to best develop the property to minimize impacts on the environment and the character of the community and the lake on which the property is situated. Ontario's guide also sets out some processes that municipalities can implement to expedite site plan approval. We encourage planning staff to consider these processes, such as categorizing and streamlining applications and e-permitting, since they will save time and costs for both staff and the public. In terms of the attainable housing policies, we agree with the statement in B4 that obtaining attainable housing for year-round residents is a challenge in the township. We strongly support the attainable housing objectives and policies to help ensure housing is available, which is affordable to low and moderate income households. We agree with the statements in the draft OP that urban centers and community areas provide the most appropriate location for attainable housing, since these areas can be appropriately serviced and are near essential goods and services. Finally, in terms of the dark sky lighting policies in L14, we recommend 3 changes that we set out in paragraph 10 of our letter to you yesterday. Briefly, to improve enforceability and to be consistent, the words new and existing should be added to sub C. So the dark sky lighting policies apply to all new and existing development. The term construction in subsection E is not a defined term and should be replaced with the term development, which is defined. And to improve enforceability of the requirement for dark sky lighting on redevelopment, the words where appropriate should be deleted in subsection I. In conclusion, I'd like to reinforce that members and supporters of the MLA and Friends of Muskoka have given priority to this official plan review over the past 3 years. We have provided substantial comments and recommendations, both at the policy direction stage and throughout the drafting of the various versions of the policy document, and are pleased to see many of them reflected in the latest draft. We're very appreciative to council members, planning staff, and Meridian consultants for your tremendous dedication to developing an official plan that reflects our community's goals and vision for the future of this beautiful place, and that includes the much needed detail required to protect the quality and character of the land, lakes, and rivers. Thank you, and I hope these comments are helpful.
Thank you, Ms. Effett. Any questions, committee? Nope. All right, then thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Amardale.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, council and staff, for this opportunity. My name is John Amardale. My address is 1049 East Rankin Road in Port Carling, where I'm on Lake Muskoka waterfront. I've been a cottager for 6 decades, and I'd like to say that I fully support all the proposals pertaining to waterfront development. In our opinion, my opinion, and my family's opinion, too many waterfront owners are putting their personal interests ahead of the environment or the aesthetic considerations that affect others. However, I'm here to speak about attainable housing. Cottagers are well represented, as I've heard this morning and heard throughout this whole process. But are we addressing permanent residents' needs? Like every other municipality in the province, or most municipalities in the province, we're struggling to meet the needs of the people who work here full time. We all know about the critical housing shortage that's here. I find it unacceptable to continue as we have been, making the same promises, the same goals, the same rhetoric. Real change is needed. But no one seems to be able to make any meaningful impact and move the needle and build any more significant number of housing. Obviously talking about permanent attainable housing. So I have a few suggestions. Number one, I think we should be measuring our attainable housing performance. We should be measuring how many people are applying to build attainable housing, measuring how many attainable units are being built. I've asked staff, I've been given some information ad hoc. The numbers are terrible. The numbers are terrible. How do you make a goal? How can attainable housing be a goal if we don't even have a goal of measuring it and tracking our performance? How can the public gauge what your performance has been in this regard when there's no publicly available records, data showing how many units have been built under your leadership? In my second point, in section L, 7.1, A, III, there's a target of 25% of new residential dwelling units to be attainable. That's a great goal. I commend you for that goal. But I don't see a single word in this entire document that offers a single tangible path or any assistance or any relief or any new action that will make this more possible. I really think that we should be specifying in this document some of the things that you are prepared to accept that will move the needle and encourage people to build attainable housing. For example, L7.1D, the township may identify standards that may be impediments to develop attainable housing. Such as what? What standards? Why can't we specify those things now? Why can't we relax the parking? Why can't we relax the coverage? Why can't we relax the development charges? Why can't we relax the building permit fees, the site plan fees? Why can't we offer tangible, meaningful, substantial action, steps, rules, forms, anything that might actually significantly move the needle? Alternative development standards. Please tell us what that could possibly be. Commit yourself to something so that a developer builder doesn't have a protracted fight ad infinitum at great expense trying to figure out what might be possible. L7.2, next point. Quotes, consideration to reducing lot frontage requirements for singles and semis. Consideration. Why can't we specify right now that a property that meets your attainable or affordable standards shall receive this rule and shall be entitled to build on a 30 or a 40-foot lot? Why can't we specify that right now?
You have about 30 seconds left. I'm just giving you a warning.
Additional dwelling units. Why can't we specify in the document whether those units have to be a separate building? I think I've been told they have to be a separate building, one separate, one attached. Why can't they all three be attached? Next point, attainable housing rebate program. It's not in the official plan. It should be. Why does a builder have to wait until after the units are built and after people have moved in to find out if he or she qualifies for your rebate? The rebate's not an incentive if you can't commit to it before the developer builder has to commit to building the unit. Sustainable and green development. This is not in the official plan, but how are you still letting people build cottages by signing a form that lets them get out of fulfilling the latest requirements of the building code and building below today's energy requirements by signing a form that they won't use the house full time. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Okay, thank you. Council or committee, any comments? Okay, well, thank you very much. And I believe we have Mr. Reid up next.
Hi, good morning.
Welcome, Mr. Reid.
Thank you. Good morning. My name's Tim Reid, and I'm at 474 Lake Joseph. And I'm speaking to my email submission of August 29th regarding section E444, water access lot creation requirements. First, look, I appreciate and support the changes that council has made to this section. I think it goes a long way to a very balanced, fair, and equitable approach. I do have one remaining concern, and that's the requirement for long-term lease, renewable by lessee, and assignable. I believe this requirement is overly prescriptive, and it will be difficult to get a marina to agree to these terms. Marinas offer these access services, and this is part of why they're in business. And rather than the lease wording requirement, I would urge council to accept a letter from a marina stating these access services are available. If left unchanged, the OP will impose a condition which will be difficult, if not impossible, to achieve. And with that, I would like to thank you for your time and the opportunity to speak.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Reid. Comments or questions, committee? No? Okay, thank you. All right, we have Miss Lundell. This is the last person that I can see that has raised their hand to speak. So anybody who happens to be in the waiting section of this meeting, would you please raise your hand? And if we don't see any at the end of Miss Lundell, we will bring this meeting to a close. Welcome, Miss Lundell.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Bridgman. My name is Liz Lundell, 4182 Muskoka Road 169, Port Carling, P0B1J0. I do appreciate the opportunity to speak today as a director of the Muskoka Lakes Association and chair of the Government and Land Use Committee. The MLA has been supportive of many policies we are pleased to see in the June 28th draft of the official plan. From the beginning of the review process, we have supported policy that puts the environment first and takes a precautionary approach to protect lake system health, natural heritage, as well as the ecological functions of lakes, rivers, and shorelines. We support the policies put in place to mitigate flooding, address the impact of climate change, protect water resources, and enhance stormwater management and watershed planning. Increasing minimum lot frontages for new lot creation to uniformly achieve best management practices outlined in the new Muskoka official plan, as well as new requirements for site plan control on the waterfront, are important steps to implement protection of our environment and natural character. Many thanks to council members, staff, and Meridian consultants for your many hours of work incorporating these vital policies. Going back to the beginning of public consultation in the summer of 2019, the MLA with the Friends of Muskoka were pleased to play a role in sharing the municipality's communications and encouraging our members and supporters to participate. A significant number of our members participated in the visioning sessions, attended workshops, and took part in the surveys. MLA and Friends of Muskoka representatives delegated on policy directions and later on specific policies. We posted updates on our websites directing our community to the Engage Muskoka Lakes page and other resources. We also sent e-blasts at times when the municipality sought the public's input, and we included information in our regular newsletters and communications to update our community on progress through the phases of official plan revision. We thank municipal staff, Meridian's consultants, and council members for receiving and considering numerous questions, suggestions, and submissions. Our submissions have also been posted on the MLA and FOM websites, and all of this was done to supplement the information on the Township website, as well as the information sent out by mail with tax bills. It has been a lengthy and comprehensive consultative process, and I think we can all be satisfied that the word is out that the official plan review process is drawing to a conclusion. If there's been no specific yet widely voiced revision requested in the feedback you receive, I believe we can assume that general community agreement with this focus on placing the environment first and better controlling development outcomes. The only additional point I would like to make today is to support the reintroduction of RCC as a hard cap on specific water bodies outlined in Table D. One last refinement committee may wish to consider is to exclude any lake or water body that is subject to a Transport Canada vessel operator restriction regulation, which prohibits power-driven vessels, inboard jet drives, and electrical propulsion. This was suggested by Planning Committee members during prior discussions, and we do believe it makes sense. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you, Ms. Lundell. Any comments or questions, committee? Oh, okay, then thank you very much. So we have one other person who would like to speak, but it happens to be Mr. Clark, who had delegated his ability to speak through to Ms. Brown this morning. And as no one else is going to be given that opportunity to speak again, we, I believe, are finished with our speakers for today. So I think what we are doing now is the wrap up. Mr. Pink or Mr. McDonald? Oh, in the community center? Okay, what would you like me to ask them? Okay, so if there's anybody in the community center who would like to have one last attempt to speak, then we're just going to confirm that. Perhaps a little out of order. Can we, so while we're confirming that, could we talk about next steps? Yeah, okay, or Mr. McDonald, I'm not sure which one wanted to. So, okay, we will confirm that. And Mr. Pink, please.
Thank you, Chair, through you. And thank everyone for their attendance today. And again, for their comments and interest in this important project. As noted in the staff report in regards to next steps, the community has until August 29th to continue to make written submissions. Staff and the consulting team will review those. We'll provide those in their entirety to council and make them available to the public as they are part of the public record. And we will return to likely a special planning committee meeting summarizing what we've heard together with I'm certain a thorough discussion on future potential revisions to the draft to address any suggestions or concerns we heard today. Ultimately, council will hopefully consider a final draft official plan for adoption. And once adopted, please note it would be forwarded to the District of Muskoka for final approval. Hope that outlines next steps and available to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Okay, good. Thank you for that, Chair. Okay, so I just think in the interest as here we are in the public forum, and this is a completely transparent meeting. While I do understand that Ms. Brown did speak, I suppose, on behalf of Mr. Clark earlier, I must say that I see no problem in allowing him into the room, given that anyone that is a representative of our Muskoka or any public member would still be allowed. We just invited, after we said he couldn't speak, we invited others in the community center to speak. So I just think in the interest of fair play that we should personally, as one vote, allow Mr. Clark to speak. Thank you.
I'm going to hear from Councillor Roberts before I comment on that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To Director Bink and perhaps yourself, timeline for coming back with the input we needed, with good lead time for us to be able to look at it and understand it and follow up before we have that special planning meeting. So I know that you're extremely dizzy, but the sooner we can get it, it allows us to digest it and get back to the delegates and for clarification on this. And I also would like to you, Chair, you'll recall at our last review in the public meetings is you asked for a list of topics that each councillor would like to table for that future meeting. And I hope you'll do the same for this one. And it does bring some sort of focus to items. Thank you.
Well, Councillor Roberts, I think we've done a lot of lists. Are you looking at introducing new things at this point? I'm having trouble quite understanding what you mean by that.
Well, I'll go back 4 years ago when I used to delegate to council and give what I thought were good points. I got a blank stare. So what I'm saying is that I heard some really good things today, and I would like to maybe bring them back for a discussion. Maybe everyone didn't feel that this is the proper forum to speak up on them right now for time and that, but I think we need an opportunity to speak to some of these points. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely, Councillor Roberts. And today really was just listening. But when the draft comes back, that is when we can do that. And certainly if you want to send me, anybody wants to send me a list, then you know what I usually do. I list that and then we go through them. So we'll do that. Now back to what Councillor Zavitz said. I am going to be at committee's discretion on this. Mr. Clark delegated to someone else his ability to speak, but I am going to let my colleagues make this decision. So how many of my colleagues believe that Mr. Clark should, Mayor Harding, I think you want to speak before then.
Yes, sorry, just to speak to that topic, I believe I saw an email that Mr. Clark didn't think he could be here in the morning. I think he gave his delegation to Ali. If she had been at the end of the meeting presenting, then she would not have had to present his comments, and I think he would have been able to. So, I don't think we had a set, you're on at 9:02 p.m. or a.m. So, hey, we're all here. If he wants to speak for a couple minutes to supplement, I don't have an issue.
All right, I was just trying to keep everything even here. Councillor Jaglowitz.
Thank you, Chair. I guess there's some flexibility, but I certainly hope Mr. Clark would not repeat anything that was in his delegation, because it's already been provided to us both verbally and written. So if he has something he'd like to add, I have no objection.
Okay, then let's bring Mr. Clark in.
Hi, Council. Sorry for, hopefully you can hear me.
Welcome, Mr. Clark, and yes, we can.
Sorry for making this decision so complicated, but appreciated to get a few moments to have a talk. I will not, sorry, it's Bob Clark 2, Bruce Wilson Drive, Port Carling P0B1J0. I will keep it brief, and I am not going to repeat either what Ali was allowed to say, or apparently there were some things omitted. All I would ask is the parts that were deemed that they should be omitted. I'm just going to ask the group of you to sit as a group and be honest with each other over the next 3 months before this gets adopted, to really have a discussion about it. You know what? If I'm off base, I'm fine to accept that. As it relates to this whole process for the past 3 years, I'd just like to thank all of you. I know I always seem to be the thorn, but maybe that's part of, unfortunately, my corporate training and some of the difficult decisions I had to make there in my life. But I tend to be one that has to ask a lot of difficult questions and say, how does this turn out when we're done? And that's really all I've tried to do for 3 years, is say, when you start shutting down property rights, the ability to sever, people's ability to family plan, all of those types of things, what does that look like for the next 10 years? Because I deal with a lot of people that are trying to do things that they're not going to be allowed to do going forward. I believe council and planning committee have done a fantastic job. And as much as you never hear that from me, I actually believe, other than the handful of topics that I had in my submission earlier that Ali was kind enough to speak to, and I thank her for that, I actually believe we've done a great job on this official plan. And I think you've put in so many countless hours. I don't know, and I appreciate the fact that a number of you are going for re-election to actually have some continuity behind this, because I think that's going to be important. So Barb, rethink your position, or Chairman, please rethink your position. Although I don't blame you after going through this. I will make one comment, and it really has to do with just a handful of things. As it relates to the official plan, I've said all along, there are so many numbers. It's so technical, it's so complicated, that the average person that I try to talk to about it, their eyes just glaze over. And they don't think it's going to impact them. But I can tell you, on almost everybody, it's going to impact them. But they don't know how, because this is too complicated to look at. And I think if we just consider the process we've had to go through on site plan alteration, tree preservation, etc., when you get these things into bylaws, we end up with way more fulsome discussions about how we get to limitations, reserving things, and coming up with numbers that are put in that shouldn't be in a plan. The plan's an overall goal. My final thing is, I'll give you an example of RCC, because everybody keeps saying, let's use RCC. We're not opposed to RCC. We don't hate RCC. We don't believe that it necessarily is as scientific as it should be. The issue is we're putting RCC on top of lake plans and causation studies, increasing frontages, site plan control. You're basically shutting down 70 lakes from ever having a severance on them. There's just too many stacked on top of each other. So just pick a couple, to go from where we are today to putting these four things in place is literally taking somebody's complete rights away. I'll close with saying, after all the hard work, after all the planning, after all of the great work everybody has put in, I'm amazed at how few people know what's going on. And that, I guess that's disturbing. Maybe it's ambivalence, I don't know. But I don't think it's from a lack of you all trying. And I appreciate all your efforts, and I appreciate having an opportunity to speak and to be part of the input group that was selected. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Any comments or questions, committee? Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Clark. All right. So I believe we don't have anybody else who's looking to speak. All right. So, Mr. McDonald, would you like to? No, you don't. You don't have to. But would you like to have any closing thoughts, or Mr. Dyment?
Yes, I do have some very quick closing thoughts, and I'll just echo what Mr. Pink indicated. We will be looking at all of the comments that have been made in writing, and the ones we listened to today. We're going to be considering them all very carefully, and we look forward to coming back to Planning Committee and having a fulsome discussion with the committee on next steps and on changes needed to the official plan. We've really enjoyed working with this committee and members of the public on this process, and we look forward to seeing it concluded. Thank you very much, Chair Bridgman.
Okay, thank you. Yes, it is still my hope that we can move this up to district by November this year. So I know Councillor Roberts was asking for timelines. So that is the hope and the aim, Councillor Roberts. All right, so that concludes this. Thank you, everybody, for taking part in this and giving us your comments. I know everybody's been listening, and we will obviously be reviewing everything again once the next draft comes out. And you'll all have an opportunity at that point to speak to us again. So in the meantime, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. It's moved by Councillor Jaglowitz, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that special planning committee meeting adjourn at 11:48 a.m. and the next regular planning committee meeting be held on Thursday, September 15th at 2022, 2022 at 9 a.m. electronically from the council chambers, municipal offices in Port Carling, Ontario. All in favor? Okay, thank you, everyone, and please go enjoy this beautiful, beautiful weather.